Oh, right. The donut shop at the beginning of the world is open. Good morning, tribe. Here we are broadcasting from lovely Ravenscar, my backyard here in suburbia America. Wow. Okay. So interesting stuff. Um, ah, I got a whole bunch of things racing through my mind, and they all just came crashing together and locking up there. Hey, good morning, Julie. How are you today? How are the goats? Hey, Tammy. Hey, Catherine. Good morning, good morning, good morning. And the neighbor's dog says good morning too. Hey, Curtis. Hey, Kimberlyn. The tribe gathers. So today on the rabbit hole, we'll probably end up going down. Hey, good morning, Sherry. Good morning, Ingrid. Good morning, Curtis. Uh, breathe. No, I got to get everything out. Uh, so meat and the world of meat. Oh, cool and great. You're going to be working on foraging today. So, okay, cool. Hey, good morning, John. So, I'm a chemist, and so I like to look at the chemistry of plants. And I also eat food, and so I like to look at the chemistry of food. And so I got some venison in my freezer, and it's pretty tough. Um, they're not the choice cuts and everything. They're like after you've eaten all the choice cuts, what you got left, knowing that it's going to be tough. Hey, good morning, Julie. Good morning, bird. Uh, Kimberly, yes, meat. Anyway, so I was looking at different ways of tenderizing it, and again, okay, hey, Melanie. For some reason, okay. Anyway, more caffeine. 1 second, please. Technical difficulties. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I was looking at ways to tenderize the venison, slow cooking and different things like that. And I came across some really interesting YouTube videos on like dry aging and different things of that. Hey, good morning, Jonathan. Good morning, Tiffany. Um, and then that led me to the rabbit hole of pineapples. And in the back of my head, I had come across this before, but I hadn't really looked into the chemistry. But in the fresh pineapple, not the particular enzymes have been pasteurized and so they no longer work. But in pineapple, there is bromelain, which is a protein who it's really good at breaking down other protein. A lot of plants that contain the bromelain are bromeliads. In fact, that's one of the defining characteristics. If it's a bromeliad, is if it has a bromelain. And what these do is most of these plants have pockets where water collects, and then bugs and things get in there and collect, and then the bromelain quickly dissolves the bug into goo, and then the plant can access it. So not like a pitcher plant or some of the other carnivorous plants per se, but it has these compounds that the bromeliad family has this bromelian that breaks down enzymes. And yeah, Jonathan's mentioned that's why the pineapple burns the tongues in some. There's some people that can be fairly sensitive to this enzyme, and it starts chewing them apart. So the question, well, it's a very common practice to include the pineapple in different meat tenderizing situations. Hey, good morning, Jennifer. Yep, Alton Brown, he's amazing. Um, so if you like take a fresh pineapple, the skin and the flesh and everything, and not the leaves at the top, go and plant that somewhere else. Put it in a blender or whip it up into a puree, soak your meat in it 12 to 14 hours, and suddenly a tough piece of meat becomes quite soft and tasty. Hey, good morning, Nicole. Good morning, Michelle. Yeah, it'll wreck some chicken. So let me throw this up here. So Nicole Anderson, I have a pineapple marinade that will wreck some chicken if it sits too long. If you find the sweet spot, it's delightful, but if you leave it too long, it turns to mush. That's actually very common with a number of meats in contact with pineapple, because the bromelian is chewing apart the protein and taking it apart. So yeah, it does require a little bit of testing. Um, there was a YouTube video that had slices of meat from the same cheap roast, and sitting in there 12 hours, 14 hours, 24 hours, and 48 hours. And by the 48 hours, the meat looked like mashed potatoes. It was just, it's an interpretive dance of meat. Okay. Hey, good morning, Aaron. Good morning, April. Good morning, Terry. Okay, cool. So I'm thinking, well, let's go out and get a pineapple and grind it up and soak the venison in it, and that should help. Yep, Ruthie, that's another good thing. It helps destroy the sting from the insect stings. But I'm thinking, okay, whoa, hey Marie, hello from Vicksburg, Mississippi. Cool. Are you hot and humid there? I'm assuming. Hey, are you in the path of the hurricane? Yeah. So I've been, or not hurricane, tropical storm Cristobal. It looks like it's not heading anywhere near Houston. It's heading off to the east towards somewhere between Louisiana and Florida. Hey, Dion. Hey, Don. Okay, so reading about the good morning, Annette. Reading about the pineapple, the bromelian, however you say the name, and it was talking about how that's one of the defining characteristics of the bromeliad family is that it has these compounds in it. Well, people don't realize unless you've taken my class or hung out with me for more than 15 minutes, the Spanish moss and the ball moss are actually members of the bromeliad family. So it got me to thinking, well, is there enough bromelian in ball moss or Spanish moss for if you pureed it, would it work as a meat tenderizer? Because that just from a bushcraft wild sort of meal thing, being able to tenderize meat with Spanish moss or ball moss would be just really cool. So off to the science articles and stuff I go, looking, trying to find if anyone's ever bothered to. There's a bug on my screen here. Has any bothered to measure the bromelain in Spanish moss or ball moss? And as far as I can tell, no one has. So so I don't know if it has it in there or if it does not. So they got me to thinking, well, okay, so I was a chemist. Well, still I'm a chemist, and one of my secrets was being able to come up with some quick and dirty way of figuring stuff out. And hey, good morning, Surrender. Oh, hey, Marie, sorry you're already having flooding. That sucks. So if you read up about pineapples, it tells you not to mix it with milk products because the bromelian in the pineapple starts breaking down the proteins in the milk and it turns it bitter. So it's like, well, there we go. We got a simple way of testing this. So this weekend, I'm actually going to be out at Spoke Hollow Outfitters scouting their property. They're kind of a eco dude ranch out in the hill country that I'm going to start teaching for also. So, because, hey, I still have some days. Anyway, so there should be some Spanish moss, or there should at least be some ball moss out there. But the plan is to get some ball moss, puree it up, mix it with milk, see then if the milk turns bitter. If it does, that means then there is bromelian in, actually in the ball moss at a level at which I should be able to use it in tenderized meat. Welcome to my world. This is how I spend my days. Going, hey, what if? Okay. Uh, okay. So I'll put Tina's. I can just see Mrs. Weather's facial expression now while you chew up moss in her blender. You're assuming I would do it when she's awake. No, 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 not happening. She gets up many hours after I do, so I have a sweet spot on days when I don't have to head down to the boss's place, where she's asleep, very, very soundly asleep, and is in no way able to stop me from going into the kitchen and doing stuff. Okay, so yeah, so that's the current plan, and once I actually get it figured out and tested, I'll let you all know. But I'm really excited about this because it's like there's no information on the net about using Spanish moss or ball moss bromeliads as meat tenderizers, and it would just be really cool if it worked. So that's what has me excited and pumped, along with hanging out with all you this morning. Yeah, so I'm just like I just need some Spanish moss and some ball moss, and I can test this. So anyway, man, it's getting humid out here. So there's that. That's one of the big things I got going on. So the other thing, totally different. Oh yeah, lemons turn milk sour, and that's a curdling effect. The acid basically causing some coagulation of the different proteins in there, or flocculation. It depends on your point of view. Oh, okay, yeah, Tina, we'll keep this a secret from John. Come to Vicksburg. It's kind of a drive. My basic rule of thumb is I have to be able to drive there and back in one day. But that includes numerous places that are 4.5 hours away. How far away is Vicksburg from Houston? Anyway, Curtis, it's not screwy, it's scientific. Okay, so the other thing that I was reading about yesterday, because I have multiple computer screens going. You don't often hear the word coagulation. How about flocculation, Nicole? Welcome to my world. So there was an interesting article in Salon magazine, online. Hey, good morning, last man. Online, news source sort of thing, and they're talking about how one of the effects of all these riots that are going on is going to be an even greater increase in the food deserts in urban areas. Food desert is basically a designation of an area where it has less than X amount of grocery stores per Y amount of people. Oh, it's only 4 hours from Houston. Interesting. Nope. Where is it? Someone said 6 hours. Okay. Yes, Ruthie, I got your email. I just haven't had I haven't had time to, do anything about that because ball moss. Anyway, so food forests, or food deserts. It's kind of an economic, social term here for urban areas that don't have access, urban or extremely rural areas that don't have access to grocery stores. And one of the things that they've shown, like after the Ferguson riots and even the Detroit riots and some of those going back into the 70s, is that after a grocery store gets burnt down in the urban cities, they don't rebuild. The margins on grocery stores are so razor thin that it just it's not worth it to them to try and rebuild it, and so you increase the food desert. And I forget which city it was, but they were talking. I think it was Detroit. One of the places I was having rioting recently. The particular area had two grocery stores, each that served about 60,000 people. because they were the only two stores there. And then one of those got destroyed. So now it's down to one serving $120,000 people, assuming it doesn't decide, to leave too, because it can't afford that. And so the food, the ability to find food drops even more. Going along that route, there's a new fad. I don't know if fad's the right word, of urban botanists and urban foragers, as they're walking down the street and walking through areas, when they see an edible plant growing from the cracks on the sidewalk and so forth, they'll whip out a piece of chalk and quickly scribble the name and how to use it on there. And so they're at least trying to reconnect the people with some sort of food. So I think that's interesting. But good morning, Stacy. Good morning, Carolyn. Yeah, their self-starvation. Wow, 300 pounds. Sorry, there's all sorts of really interesting comments going on at the same time here. Tina Marie is mentioning that her neighbor killed a 300-pound boar night before last. Kevin, morning. Sorry, I late. Was making jelly half of night. Ball moss tinctures made by herbs. Yeah, so that's one thing. I need to look at my tinctures and see if the bromelian and then is enough to tenderize meat, but I suspect not. But we'll see. Anyway, yeah. So one of the things, just the labeling the plants they see along the sidewalks and so forth, because there's been some really interesting studies that a lot of the weeds in urban areas are actually not contaminated. They're actually very clean. Over the decades, a lot of the industries and cities that kind of led to pollution have left. It's all internet type stuff going on and computers. So, there's not a lot of actual pollution in the cities that these plants can absorb. So it's kind of it's actually safe to harvest in cities. Ooh, Marie. Okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about the meat tenderizing with ball moss or Spanish moss. But yeah, it could be something. And actually, it's a good idea to look into Cajun texts. My mind is just whizzing here right now. There's someone. Here we go. So how do you feel about planting fruit trees in those types of areas and the food for it? I think it's a great idea, as long as you keep the lawyers out of it. One of the complaints by cities is that fruit trees can be messy and slippery. And so the concern is someone walking along steps on a spoiled plum that's on the ground and goes, woo, blam, and then sues the city. Because now they can, and so the city doesn't want that. So they're trying to juggle liability, or right now the people are just doing batshit crazy stuff. If someone sprays poison on the trees or whatever, so no one, or very few. There are some, like in Austin, there's a food forest. There's a few other around Texas. Pearland has one, where they've set the fruit there, or they planted fruit trees that people can harvest from. It does rely, on people being nice to each other and not someone coming in the middle of the night and taking all of it and selling it at some farmer's market. Because if you really want to see the human race, look up what's called the tragedy of the commons. The tragedy of the commons. This is an economic term, and basically says it goes back to the early days, the Middle Ages, when there was like the town green, and people could have their sheep just graze on the town green, and people quickly figured out there's all this grass here. If I get a whole bunch of sheep on there and my sheep eat it, then that's great, because I get the benefit of this common area, even though it belongs to everyone. And so, there were no laws against putting, twice as many sheep on there as everyone else. It was, it was more like a a handshake agreement by the people that, yeah, we won't abuse this, but someone always abuses it. And once someone abuses it, then everyone abuses it, because if they don't abuse it, then they get shut out. And, either way, everything collapses. So, yeah, tragedy of the commons. So the downside of that is then, if you're the first person to go in and harvest all the plums and grab all the plums from the town food forest, now you got to market on the plums. You can, like I said, go up into the farmer's market. Murray, guerrilla gardening. That's another great thing. So the more urban agriculture we can get going, the better the overall food security of, the people is. The trick is educating people both on identification and use of the foods, and also on, keeping the bad people out from just taking everything. So I will tell you, I've Johnny Apple seeded quite a few canna lilies around, and wild onions, and I've oh, and the wapato, lotus, different things like that, different native plants that their ecosystem has been kind of encroached upon, spreading them to slightly more urban, suburban areas. As food security is really, really, really important. I talk about my time in China, and there it was fascinating to me because every bit of land that did not have a building or a road on it was devoted to crops. There was no just decorative landscaping. Everything was fruit trees and melons and broccoli and all this all over the place. Because just to feed their people, they needed every little bit of food they could grow. Marie, thanks for the kudzu. I'll think about it. Yeah, good morning, Eileen. Yeah, so growing your own food, obviously a good thing. If nothing else, grow some wild onions in a pot. Wild onions have all sorts of really good nutrients and health benefits, and things like that. But I'm a huge fan of edible landscaping. The whole food, not yards. Grass was the biggest scam ever pulled on humans, I guess, having a grass yard when you could have crops that are even easier to maintain than grass. Yeah, Michelle, most would starve if they were just relying purely on themselves. But the goal is, you can't rely purely on yourselves, especially in the realm of calories. That's where you run into problems. But if you can take care of 20% of your needs, it still goes a long way. Yeah, Julie. Yeah, there's a big problem. There was a few years ago in Houston, a lady had a grapefruit tree in her front yard, and people were stealing from it. And then one day she finally came out shooting. She didn't hit the people, but they took off running, and the cops showed up, and she was completely in her right. They were robbing her property. So interesting there. Yep, dandelions. In my case, like when I'm king, the goal will be you are not allowed to kill dandelions with poison. You can harvest them and eat them, make coffee out of them, make medicine out of them, things like that. But you can't just willy-nilly destroy them. Yeah. All right. So here's like this. I'm going to put another Tina quote up here. Yeah. So she lives out in this beautiful area out in East Texas, and people come, chop everything down, and put up grass. And now they have 50 acres of stuff they have to mow every weekend. I do not understand that either. But I mean, whoop. Okay. How do you keep non-native flower from escaping a plant container? That's a really good question, Jonathan. So one of the nice things about that, remember, so it has to form a flower, and then that flower eventually turns into the seed-bearing body. So as the flower is getting close to the end of its life, you deadhead it. You chop it off, and the plant doesn't go to seed. That's the main way, just preventing the seeds. Now, if there are a chance of runners, one thing I like to do is I'll have the pots up on a little stand so there's a gap. So if it's starting to put roots down and creep around outside the pot, I can see those and whack those off. So remove the flowers once the flowers have reached a certain stage so they can't continue on to make seeds, and make sure the roots aren't creeping out, and that does a great job. Oh, Angela, you converted your front yard to a pollinator garden. That's awesome. Oh, coffee. Coffee. All right. Yeah. I can't imagine. I mean, I've shown you my backyard here. It's going to be kind of bright, but I have a little bit of grass right over there. And it's kind of blanked up by the sun. A little bit of grass there, but everything else is food or drink or medicine. So, oh, Stacy, you have so much yard, no idea what to do with it. Okay, Mark, don't take on another project here. Okay. If nothing else, start looking into permaculture and food gardens, and start digging some holes. I would say don't plant trees yet. Normally I say the best time to plant, or the two best times to plant trees, are 10 years ago and immediately today. But one thing I found is that if you don't have a good idea of the future use of your yard, planting a tree, you may end up putting it in a spot that it ends up shading everything and complicating matters. But anyway, let's see. Put this up here. Okay, I'm reading the Tragedy of Commons and the criticisms of the essay. The original essay was written in 1833 by the Commons, and the force available for harvesting foods had been restricted and diminished considerably. Yeah, the theory behind it, or why the Tragedy of the Commons happens, is almost innate in humans. So, soon as something is free, someone is going to try and grab all of it. All right. Okay. Oops. Where is it? There we go. Okay. So, last man, have you ever done any work with Texas Native Plant Society? Yes. And if I were in the house, I could show you. In fact, just in 2019, I won an award from them for one of the most useful Texas plant websites ever. So I give talks with them, I work with them, set things up like that. So yeah, we have a long relationship. Oh, Angelina, yeah, just start throwing wildflowers down. Wildflowers mixes. Go to what is it? Like Native American Seed Company, and they will send you mixes of wildflowers for your specific area of Texas, because the soils are different, and there's enough difference in Texas that what grows in South Texas isn't necessarily what's right for East Texas or North Texas or Central Plains. And so they will set you up with the seeds most likely to succeed in your area. Let's see. Oh man, wolf. Okay. So let me put this up here. This is a tough one. So logged 10 years ago, now overrun with wild strawberries and raspberries. The brambles of those nature, they are so aggressive in their growth. It makes it hard. This is where you call in goats or the brush hogs, and just almost start over from scratch. Go through and wipe big swatches of those out, and then start immediately planting some other things. Pecan trees and Elaeagnus and Turk's cap and wax myrtle and things like that. And then just stay fighting the raspberries and the wild strawberries and stuff, because those things, like I said, they are aggressive. And if you don't keep them in check, they will spread. They are almost like a kudzu with tasty berries. It's frustrating. And if you have a lot of acres of it, you're fighting a blob. It's the battle is not one you can easily win without scorched earth policy, which is unfortunate, but that's probably where you're going to go. You can talk, Wolf, to your local county extension office and see if they have any particular ideas for your specific area. These are the ones, their job, it's a government agency, their job is to help landowners maximize the ecological and agricultural benefits of their property. So they might have an idea other than a brush hog. There might be some new stuff or something that they recommend, but scorched earth, taking it down and starting over. That's a hard one. Okay. Oh yeah, Ladybird Johnson offers seeds to. They used to. I want to say they recently basically became overwhelmed and stopped. But yeah, the Native American Seed Company, absolutely fantastic company to deal with and to get the seeds from. Stacy, so the poison ivy, and this advice is probably going to upset people, but the problem with the poison ivy is if you leave the root alive, it's just going to come right back. So you need to kill the root. So just chopping it down, getting goats in there, that's not going to do anything. Okay, folks, here we go. Roundup. But you apply it in a very specific way. The thing about the chemicals in Roundup, what makes them special, the glyphosate, is that they will penetrate into the plant. They will flow down the circulatory system of the plant into the roots and kill the roots. That's why it's been such an amazing herbicide. Now, what you want to do, though, is you want to cut the vines off of the top, and then with a Q-tip, dip it in the Roundup, and then dab it on the top of the thing. Don't broadcast spray it. You want to very, very precisely locate, the Roundup poison and dab it on there, and then that will go down and kill the roots. Okay. There was another. Oh, someone asked about garlic. Off the top of my head, I don't know any particular specific varieties that do better or worse than others in the area. Okay. Wow, we clear about 1/8 of an acre. Let me just throw this up there, Wolf. So you have managed to clear about 1/8 of an acre for a garden plot, but that's a year of 2 people clearing. It sounds like you're doing it by hand. Oh, I do not envy you. I'm amazed by you that you even get that much. But yeah, years ago I planted some blackberries in my yard, and I am still fighting them, trying to get rid of them because if again, like with the poison ivy, if there's any little bit of root left from the blackberry or the dewberry or raspberry, it will spread and grow, and I still got it popping up everywhere. Whoa, okay, it's 8 o'clock. I need to get to work. Thank you all. Tribe, love you. Hope you had some useful information today. And then so tomorrow and Sunday, days of rest. Rest. But I will be back Monday morning with the donut shop at the beginning of the world. Who knows what strange random stuff I'll have for you by then. Okay, take care of yourselves, take care of your family, take care of your loved ones, take care of your enemies. Okay? That's what makes humans great. Gotta go. Bye-bye.